Welcome to Tales from the Gutter. For the month of October, we are focusing each week on a specific type of horror or spooky comic. This week, we are focused on comics geared more towards younger audiences. To start off this discussion, we each read Anya's Ghost by Vera Brosgol, Coraline by Neil Gaiman and adapted and illustrated by P. Craig Russell, and Bad Island by Doug TenNapel. Hello, welcome to Tales from the Gutters. I'm Kayleigh Fleeman.
I'm Kirbotron 2000.
I'm Cade Reynolds.
I'm Deforge.
I'm Levi Fleeman.
Yep, my little brother will be here to join in on the discussion. He was the one that actually recommended Bad Island, so when that comes time, he will be leading the way for all of us.
Doug TenNapel fan here.
Yeah.
Good times.
So we read Anya's Ghost, Coraline, and Bad Island. All three books kind of geared towards creepy horror elements, but more geared towards children. So
Spooky.
just spooky. This is a huge genre. So we obviously weren't able to pick everything that's ever been available, but I think these three kind of give a good
Range.
a good range and like a good starting ground to kind of talk about this huge genre. And I think Anya's Ghost for me is a really good starting point for that. Anya's Ghost is by Vera Brosgol, and it focuses on Anya, a Russian teenager who's trying to navigate through high school as not only a teenage girl, but as an immigrant. And she falls down a well and discovers a ghost. And this ghost seems to want to help her figure out how to fit in to high school and how figure out a way for her to get the boy that she likes and get rid of any competition. Does anybody, before I start going off, does anybody have something in particular that they want to say, or?
Go. Yeah, I don't know. I'm good.
Well, what I'm going to hop in about, I guess, is art style on a couple different fronts. I was kind of staring at these pages and thinking of how fun it really was just to look at and have this nice sense of balance between, I guess, like, again, things feeling creepy and the grays and everything else, but never really getting to this direction of sinister, I don't think, at any point in the book, even kind of toward the end. But I was trying to figure out why this was the case. And I think ultimately what it was is that I kept thinking of Puzzle Agent, the game Puzzle Agent, and I was like, I don't really know why this is so familiar. And then I just humorously enough peeked into the back, and one of the people that was thanked in this was, never sure how to say it right, Graham Annable, who did Puzzle Agents. And so if anybody hasn't played that game, they need to get down with that, because it's basically like Fargo if it was a little creepier with puzzles. And actually it feels a lot like this comic, because there's a lot of opportunities for kind of charming humor to come out in it.
The ghost cigarette, goes bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny to me, actually, that like one of the things I was thinking about looking through Anya's Ghost and reading it was, for some hilarious reason, even though she was in high school, I was utterly scandalized and shocked that our protagonist was a smoker. I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, I'm not sure I could turn this to a kid, you know. My inner librarian kind of thing was sitting here and getting nervous about the thought of some parent coming to me and being like, why'd you hand this to my kid? And having no problem, of course, whatsoever with dead bodies, murders, arson, any of those things. But my God, you know, swearing and smoking. Yeah.
Keep those cigarettes away from our children.
Yes. Because, you know, they clearly don't see them anywhere.
You have to watch out for Joe Campbell there.
Yeah, you know, it's dangerous stuff.
I mean, the cigarettes have to be at least 25 feet away from any building right now, so...
Yeah. And that's the problem. They did not obey this and that. Obey that law in this book.
But unlike Anya, the cigarettes have to have that distance. Anya has to be linked to her remains at some point. And so, she's got her own little smoke trail that I'm thinking about in that. For some reason, that comparison kept coming up with me between like the physical act of smoking and Anya's ghost little tether between her remains. And I think stylistically you can kind of see that on some of the pages. That there are all these little drawings here, but I think of course they're drawings, it's a comic. I think my favorite page had that little, I don't know if you'd still call it a montage in a comic, but maybe not a splash either, but
I think you can call it a montage.
Yeah, okay. And so
there was
Emily was helping. Yeah, in my head.
Background, so
they were playing that yeah, where Anya and Emily are doing these things together. Like Emily is playing lookout while she smokes in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
And then she's, and she gets her test back and it's a B+, and they're like, ghost friendship.
I was just
What
on
did
the
it
page.
say?
I know. It was it said ghost days are awesome.
Yeah.
It was,
Ghosts are awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that made me
No,
giggle
it says
so hard.
next day ghosts are awesome. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there we go.
That
But
was close.
that little picture of them in the middle being like, hey, buddy. And I loved that so much.
Well, it was
so cute.
Yeah, that's what I really like about this comic. And I think even though Anya is a teen and based on kind of the things that she does, I'm assuming that she's like 16 or so, like 16, 17 maybe.
well, she doesn't have her license yet.
Okay, so
there was that whole
yeah.
thing.
And they're in New England.
So
they had indicated
you
that.
can
So
only
it's
be 16 in New England.
No, I mean, like, as far as, like, well, obviously we know anyway that she's an immigrant and that she's in the U.S., and so, if we're saying that she doesn't have her license or things, it could just be because her mom is going for citizenship or she's using her limited budget to send her daughter to this school. Mm-hmm. There could be, I didn't get my license stuff until I was, like, 17 and a half, so...
Yeah.
Close for
Yeah.
me too. So.
Boom.
Honestly, I liked page 90 because of the art of it, kind of like how it made it look like a dream or illusion, kind of like an image.
It's like inverted.
Yeah, it's like all smushed together and kind of just made like a really short story, but kind of like explained a lot. So yeah, that's what I liked about the book, and I also like the cover because I like the cover how it fits everything.
So that's the point. The page you're describing is the point where she's telling her story, I guess, about how she ended up
Origin.
Yeah, there we are. Her origin story, and it's really cool next to the the one here on 91 where it's mostly just black, and
So
just
kinda
little points of white.
Yeah,
fear.
there's definitely a lot of cool playing with like panel layouts and how people sit inside or outside of panels. This book reminds me a lot of Persepolis and a lot of the art and
Is that's the one about
Marjane.
No, she's Iranian.
Margie.
Marjan's Sarabti or something.
Yeah,
I can never
Sarabti.
apologize.
I could see that.
Sorry.
I thought that also.
Yeah,
And
and
it's cigarette. That's just something like that.
but yeah, so it's even though it focuses on a 16-year-old girl, I think it's pretty. I think anybody over the age of like 11 or 12
12-ish at the most
would really like this. Just because it really focuses on the idea of feeling like an outsider, even if other people view you as popular or view you as, making it or that sort of a thing. The feeling of nobody really understands me. I have to kind of hide who I really am. Anya has lost her accent. She went to like verbal training and stuff to get rid of it. She doesn't eat a lot of her family's food because she's kind of embarrassed by it because it's like greasy and fatty, and she's still in that like obsession over her weight. And and she's really worried that she's going to gain a bunch of weight, or that she won't be attractive, or that she'll be like a Russian stereotype, or any of these things, and these are all weighing down on her. And then she has something happen to her that makes her view, or like reevaluate her view of what makes somebody an outsider. And I think that's really cool. So even though it is a ghost story, it's also like a coming of age story and a self-acceptance story.
I really like that at the end of towards the end of the book, like when she goes to the party and then she kind of sees this girl that she's kind of been like, oh, I hate her. She just and like the girl, like she's kind of being a jerk because like this girl's like really nice to her. Like she really, other than being jealous, she has no reason to like be a jerk back. But then she goes to this party and she finds out that this like perfect girl's life isn't that great, and that this like kind of group of people she wants to be around isn't like kind of in the same headset that she is of what she wants out of life. Right. And so she has to like reevaluate herself. And I think that Emily's ghost is kind of like representative of like her wanting that and like going for it. And then when she has to and then when she has to make the decision that no, not this for me. And so she like, puts it back and she, buries it. Literally. She buries it.
Yeah. What I applaud about the book, especially for the intended audience, is that it's so easy and so very boring to write a story geared toward people in their teenage years, where it goes, oh, there's the popular girl. She's awful because she's popular. The characterization is, oh, she can't possibly be a kind person and good looking and well liked. That's not possible. And all these other lessons that come with it, like she does struggle with body image, but I think it was very telling when she ended up down in that hole and she had like so little with her in her bag to eat after the statement from Emily about, well, I couldn't move. I eventually starved in here. That when you write a book for this age group, it's pretty easy. And I remember when I was this age, it's pretty easy to be hung up on your own feelings and your own expectations about how the world works. And I think it was a gentle way of challenging the expectations that you have, and that without being condescending and being like, you don't know how good you have it. It was more like, if you open your eyes and look at someone else's perspective or someone else's experience, you can come to those conclusions on your own. You don't have to be told. And the book never tries to directly tell the character, well, you should feel this way instead of that way. You should learn from this instead of that. It's all implied by the changes in her actions and the reevaluation of her priorities. And that's very refreshing for me, because I can't stand when books are written for younger people and they still have to get all like Aesop's fables on them and be like, this is what you should learn. This is what you need to get out of this.
The moral of the story is don't fall down in a hole where there's a ghost girl.
That's exactly what I got out of the book.
The moral of the story, never trust a ghost.
Yeah.
Don't trust a ghost.
Yeah. Can't trust a ghost. No.
Can't trust no one.
Yeah, that's...
Yep.
Kayleigh's picking up what I'm putting down.
303.
Honestly, what I was thinking, I think it's just basically saying, don't trust no one, because, like, even... Yeah.
I really think that this is a great book.
I liked it.
For adults or kids.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Actually,
three and up, I would say.
3, yeah. 3 is a reasonable... Just hand this to a 3-year-old. Don't read it to them. Just hand it to them.
Yeah,
and they'll get what they need to from it. It's mostly hours or an hour of enjoyment ripping pages out of it.
Oh,
there you go.
And
we're coloring it.
Yeah.
Can we also applaud, too, just while I'm thinking of it, that her friend can be abrasive, can be rude, can be difficult, but still be trying to look out for her and give her good advice. And I really liked the contrast between having her friend who wasn't terribly sociable, have a lot of friends, everything else, and this popular girl, both being good people with good intentions. And they didn't get this entirely black and white characterization of like, I'm your best friend and I'm going to go along with everything you say, or I'm the popular girl, which means I'm automatically a monster.
Yeah. That's actually what I like too. That was actually, she was probably one of my most favorite parts like one of my most favorite characters of the story. Because like at first when I think it's Seobat Han, something like that.
Siobhan, I
Sobat-
think. It's
Siobhan?
something weird like that.
Yeah.
It's an Irish name, so it's a
But
little
like
hard
when,
for those of
but
us who
when
can speak Gaelic.
she was when Anya was walking with Dima, it was just kind of like how her friend, introduced her as, oh, you're walking with your boyfriend. So at first it was kind of like, I thought it was the bully at first, but then I was fooled because I realized that it's just a friend messing with her. But also what got me to think it was the bully, because she was asking for cigarettes, and, they were all arguing at first, and she yelled, enjoy your cigarettes. So that's kind of what said it there. But then like when you go farther in the book, you realize that they hang out more, and they're like more of talking and skipping class together. So then that means, that's it. Kind of just said it was like, oh, they're friends. Okay, that's cool. And yeah,
Yeah, that's a rare thing in books that are written about girls too, is that I find a lot of books for boys are allowed to have these antagonistic friendships where they rag on each other and kind of have fun, but a lot of books for girls about girls don't really celebrate that same type of friendship where you can tease each other and be a little rough on each other.
Yeah.
And
Or
so
get
I
in
thought that was
trouble.
special. Yeah. The
With it.
girls can get in trouble
Yeah.
too.
Instead of being, oh, Anya, like this would have been really easy to write this as, oh, Anya's just a sweet, quiet girl, gets good grades and nobody notices her. And I think it would have been really boring. And it feels real. It feels like parts of myself when I was growing up and parts of my friends as they were growing up. And I don't know, I just really like this characterization.
Good book, guys.
Yep.
Cool.
Good.
also
pick.
that's actually why they probably put her friend as a different, as like that personality, because if it was like every, like, how in this book it passed by like a few days, and so basically if they put her friend as, oh, hi Anya, I love you, we're all good friends, it would just got boring. But it, like, when they put her as like, the joking around friend, and actually put it as like, oh, you know what, she has actually something to say, and it's more actual readable,
It adds conflict. It
Adds
makes it so
personality.
she's a real
Yeah.
personality. Good choice.
So our second book is Coraline. And Coraline is kind of unique in that it was a novel first, and then a graphic novel second.
Movie.
And then a movie, which is actually fantastic. I say actually as if I'm surprised.
They Might Be Giants did the soundtrack for it. It's great.
Yeah, no, it's
Studio
absolutely
Leica did the animation.
Yep.
Yeah.
My friend's dad did the scene with the dogs.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my claim to fame right there.
I didn't know that was a thing. That's really cool.
So this follows the story of Coraline, who is a young girl moved into a flat with her parents. It was this old, very large home, and is broken up into smaller apartments, and there's different families and individuals who live in each apartment. And so she kind of goes exploring through their portion of the house, and she finds a door that's locked, but when she opens it, it's bricked up. And so it kind of, as the days go on, you kind of find out that she, like most children, is frustrated with her current living situation. She's frustrated that she moved to a boring place. She's frustrated that her parents don't always pay attention to her. She feels like they don't pay any attention to her. She's frustrated that she can't get the physical items that she wants, like Dayglow green gloves and galoshes and things like that. Just normal kid things that are frustrating to a kid. And so one night a door opens up and these rats come skittering out and lead her to another world through the door that was once bricked up, where she meets her other mother. And her other mother promises that she can eat all the food that she wants, and it will always taste good, and it'll always be good. She can always play. She can always have all the things that she wants. All she needs is for Coraline to let her sew buttons into her eyes, and she can live there forever. And so that kind of follows the story of her figuring out who the other mother is and why getting everything you want isn't always a good thing.
Okay, so I have to say something about the boring part of the book. I liked the book a lot. It was a good book. I even liked the movie. But it's just, the first, I guess, chapters, did it separate by chapters, I think? Yeah. It kind of got into just the same thing. It would, like, say, like, you know, there's this and this, there's this, like, you know, like, and just finally just ends, it's boring, or I'm bored. And so that's what kind of tired me out after a while, but then right when I got tired, it started kicking up, you know, like, she finally went through the door, and yeah, but I'm just saying, the first few chapters were not my favorite, honestly.
Yeah.
Because
They're kind of slow.
it was really slow. Like, honestly, I think they could have, like, kicked it in a little bit later, because, I don't know. I think also in the, known as the other world, I think they needed to also describe, not the other mother or the other father, but, like, you know, like, what's, like, the old...
Miss Sphinx and Miss Crucible.
Yeah, you know, I think they need to describe them in the other world, because, I mean, like, why were they disguised as old, old peaceful people, but, so I think they should just, like, describe them a little bit more.
Well, so this was written by Neil Gaiman first, as a novel. Have you read the novel?
Actually, no, I have not.
Okay. So this was written as a novel first, and then it was adapted by P. Craig Russell. So he did the art and the text. So from what I can remember of the novel when I read it, because it's been a couple of years, I felt like the boring parts are almost intentionally boring. Mm-hmm. They're very much so like slice of life. You're supposed to be bored with Coraline.
That's how you relate to her feelings
Yeah.
a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's nothing interesting going on. So you, by the time that things start happening, feel the same way that she does, where it's basically, oh, finally, good things are happening.
I guess unless you're old, in which case even the boring part was interesting.
Right, yeah.
In the sense you've got to put yourself back in the place where you were that age, and you had to remember what it was like to not be entertained and not have your parents or family members engage with you or engage with your whims or your feelings, or, you know, kind of be there to entertain you.
Well, nowadays those kids got them cell phones that they can look at their Facebook
Cell-ID
on.
phones and on that YouTubes.
I
Yeah.
was actually thinking about this the other day. Like, I was thinking about when I was younger and, like, waiting for my mom to pick me up from school or something. I would just have to, like, sit there and wait. Like,
Yeah.
and now you just look at your phone and don't do that anymore.
You see,
Well,
So I think she needs a cell phone is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that
I think this whole situation
if
would have
she
been
had a cell
avoided.
phone, then
Yeah.
we wouldn't have a story. So
I had the
What if
same...
there was no signal at her new house?
Then
download
you'd
Well,
get
I
in a
mean-
situation where things got too spooky, and I'm not really sure if we could handle that right
You'd
now.
have to replay like your old levels of Candy Crush that you already beat.
A
See,
fate worse than death.
She did live in a mountain area, hill area, and but also what it does say later on, she did walk to the supermarket, like to the city. So I mean, maybe there could be Wi-Fi, but I don't know.
Who knows?
I actually lived through the same thing. I was really bored. I did not have Facebook. I did not have Twitter or anything until I was actually 12, and I got my first truck phone. But I mean, still, only I really just played Snake the whole time. Those
Very
good days, or Tetris. But yeah, my house was kind of the same too. I mean, there was really no electronics. Our PS2 started cutting out too a little bit. So, I mean, it worked for Kayleigh, of course, but not for me most of the time. And I don't know. but I mean, I guess I could feel the same way. I mean, all she really has to, she really only what she has is to explore. And honestly, when you live in those like field areas, there's nothing but a field, and there's really not much. But also speaking of the bored part, when I started reading it more is when the old guy, when he said, my rats said something about stay away from the door, but she didn't really show much emotion though, like like worried. She was just kind of like, I mean, if I have a guy saying my rats are telling you not to do this, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
You listen usually.
I'll listen. And
Crazy old man tells you
because
not to
also
do something,
if a crazy old man and two old, probably wise people live in the same house as you, telling you not to do something, I mean, you're in danger. I don't think you really want to go through that door. Then I'll kind of have a second thought about that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think about, actually, with the boredom thing, how many great stories for children and young adults start out with this idea of, again, being bored and having to explore. You've got, like, Narnia. They had to play hide and seek in this huge house, and then they end up in a different world because they go through a door or something like that. Alice didn't want to do her lessons and followed a white rabbit and all this stuff. I think there's something to be said, actually, about being young and being bored and how you tend to find or make your own adventure. And I think that's cool. But speaking of boredom, I also want to seg into something else. I feel like this is one of those stories that is so much better done by just reading the novel.
Yeah.
Because P. Craig Russell has, in my opinion, reading the graphic novel was painful for me because there was no real sense of wonder or imagination or darkness or anything. Everything was so beige. Even in
And
like
the
this
facial
other world,
expressions had
he cannot
nothing.
make anyone emote because he is so tied into drawing a face that he doesn't think about drawing a person. And I find that really sad because I think about my experience reading this novel first and the things that my imagination was capable of bringing up. And when I heard they were making a graphic novel, I go, oh, good, this is going to be great. And I get it, and I start flipping through, and I was like, there's... The art doesn't match the tone. There's not a whole lot of spooky. There's not a whole lot of
This is
creative.
why I don't watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and that happens sometimes, is that your imagination will always be better than the visual representation of a story in your own mind. And I acknowledge that. But then you look at, say, again, Studio Leica's interpretation of this. And you've got long, pointy fingers and arms and, like, skinny, skeletal people with spider legs.
Bright colors and
wiggly little cats and, all these sort of things that they do with this. They bring a sense of wonder and imagination to the story. And then I feel so sad to, like, hand that graphic novel over to someone and be like, here's this great story. I wonder if maybe you can just not look at it, because that's the point of a graphic novel.
And
it's the point of a graphic novel adaptation is to tell the story in a different medium. And I think it kind of robs people of some of the fun. I think is art.
I think specifically in Coraline too, when you hear about the mother and the other father and all that, as a kid especially, you can't help but think of your own parents in that way. So you think of your own mom, but with the fingers that are a little bit too long and too pointy and with teeth that are a little bit too sharp and things like that. And that's really creepy. Like, this book really creeped me out as a kid. And, like, I loved it, and it's still one of my favorite books, but I think the graphic novel does fall a little short.
I read it at age 20 in my first library job, and I read it on the desk at the library during the afternoon in a well-lit day. I was extremely put off by his words. I was, and I'm in public, for heaven's sake, and I'm still like, ugh, God.
Well, Neil Gaiman is, like, I believe this is one of his earliest works, if I'm not mistaken.
I think this was 2006.
Yeah, and
or 4. Well, one of his, as far as his novel efforts, he already had out Neverwhere and American Gods and Stardust, because I read all of those the same summer on the desk at the library.
He was already decently established at that point then.
He had a fair amount of adult novels, but I think this was maybe his first foray into young adult or juvenile.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking that this book was a little bit older for some reason.
This was before Mirror Mask, though, right?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Because Mirror Mask came out and we got to go see it in the theater. I remember because I got super into him, and that was around the same time.
Yeah. So with Coraline, he does such an excellent job of describing everything, and I haven't read the book in a long time, but the scene where she's drawing mist, I believe in the book he has the text kind of droopy and like spaced out, like how she draws mist in the comic. And I don't think that they show that in the movie, but you definitely get that sense. And he does a lot of like playing around with words and with concepts and things like that you really get this sense of wonder. And this comic just really falls flat. So my recommendation for Coraline is read the book, watch the movie, and then if you are curious, read the graphic novel. But it is not... To me, it's more something that's interesting to read as an adult and look back upon, more so than it is to hand to a child and be like, hey, you should read this comic. I think you'd have better luck giving them the novel.
Hey, well, I'm going to actually go into detail, by the way. I just forgot about this, but there was actually one thing I really did like about the book was about the speech bubbles, or the index box or whatever. I liked how they added the sharp lines, where it's coming from the whoever's talking. I really liked that because it actually did make me picture of like a "Welcome home, sweetie." Those like kind of creepy, uncomfortable whispering voice. So that was the detail I really liked about it. I really liked the also, like, when the rats were singing the page, when they added like the really like sharp wooden kind of looking bars, it kind of made it make it feel like they're like having like a sharp, deep voice. It was like kind of like is like letting oh man, there's a lot of them singing and they're like creepy voice and it's unsettling. So that's why I liked the detail, and my favorite is what the people were saying, like when the other mother said, "Please come back again," but when they added the squiggle line, it like almost like made it where she knew she was going to come back because she did something to make Caroline come back.
Yeah, the wavery line.
Yeah, the wavery line. Yes,
more wavery sounding in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
that's a good eye. I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I picked up on that pretty much when I started reading. Once she got to the other mother, so I instantly noticed that, and so it just made it for me. It made it like unsettling. It's like, oh man, what is she going to do? I mean, she's kind of up to something here. So
yeah.
And like with like the straight line, you can tell they're just normally talking, with like a normal humane tone. So yeah, that I definitely caught that, and happy that I did because it kind of made the story more detail to me. So
yeah. I can see what you mean. It's a big part of when you make a comic, since you don't have voices and everything else. You have to do something, to show what something sounds like, mm-hmm. or help give somebody an idea of what they're seeing on a page.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a good point, though. That's something that you would need in a book like this.
But when you want to do something like that, you actually have to also make the character look like what they'll sound like. To the other mother, to me, she looked wicked. Let's say a little on the outside because, you know, if you notice, like, her teeth are, like, super long, so that kind of added the, you know, she's not right, you know, look, and also, like, the button eyes, it didn't look right. And if you notice that in her facial expression of her eyebrows or, like, the upper part of her forehead, it made her look really, like, distressed and angry most of the time. So that's what kind of got me about the other mother and the other father. I mean, the other father doesn't really do it. What I noticed about the other father, though, his eyes are always lifted up, like he has, like, a poor expression, kind of like, let's not say expression, but personality. He's, like, kind of like a whimpery expression, like, personality. So I'm wondering if something happened before that you kind of have to figure out for yourself, because to him, he always obeys the other mother. He's always, you know, like, oh, you know, he's kind of basically like, let's say, the pet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I found of seeing his expressions, because he always looks like he just got beaten almost. So that's what it looked like to me.
Do you think maybe some of how she's seeing other mother and other father might look a little bit like maybe she thinks of her parents in kind of a similar way, because her mom might be hard for her to talk to, or she, you know, wonders why her dad doesn't stand up for himself more or something, you know? Maybe you're kind of seeing what she might see.
Well, basically in what's called the other world, that's what the world is called. Basically, when you do that, it's what she wanted the whole time, but when she turned down the other mother, that's when the reason why she locked, you know, the door and all that, that's because the other mother was like, what did I do wrong? You know, she wants to fix the problem, because Coraline's mind kind of just went off, because if, like, of course, the expression, I mean, that's what kind of set it off. And so basically it's the other mother saying, I can fix it, sweetie, you know, love me again. She's like what the cat said too, she just wants someone to love. So that's because the other mother was in distress. It's what she's not loving, like, because she feels like Coraline doesn't love her.
Yeah, okay.
So that set off anger.
Yeah, that's good.
Alrighty. So, our final book, and we picked this kind of as the final book for a reason, so we can kind of kick off discussion about
Doug TenNapel.
Yeah, because I think all of us can talk about him for forever and always. Our final book is Bad Island by Doug TenNapel, and it follows a family who crashes a boat on a bad island. Surprise! And there are a bunch of creepy monsters that are after them, and it's very much so a family-oriented tale. So, Levi, you were the one that picked this particular book.
Yes, I was. Yeah, I mean, so when you asked me what was a really good book, I noticed that I think you guys already reviewed Ghostopolis. Did you guys do that already? Nope. Okay. Well, that's another book by him. That's a good one to check out. But let's do this one. Bad Island was, it kind of set off a creepy atmosphere to it. Like, let's say, my favorite part of the book is how it all started, of course, the origin of the Bad Island. So, what made it creepy, too, is that they are finding the artifacts, which came from the myth, the origin, basically. Kind of like they found the stone, which is aka the hiding place.
So
yeah.
What happens in this book is a alien civilization, and also the very large alien that civilization lives on, crashes into Earth through a series of circumstances, and you as the reader know that the island that the family crashes on thousands of years later isn't just an island, it's actually this alien creature. and it's definitely hinted to at the on the cover. And so you see this, and you see this family trying to figure out where they are and why this island is so strange. There are a lot of really weird creatures that are happening. They can hear, specifically the little girl can hear some voices kind of guiding her to like helpful hiding places, or things that they need. And they encounter a zombie that is after them. They encounter a very creepy looking triangle head guy.
A giant rat.
A giant rat. So they have to encounter and fight off all of these creatures. And this follows that family trying to figure out how to get off of this island. And they, in that journey, end up saving the alien.
Mm-hmm. Also, saying I'm going to shout out to the Momo people, which are basically people that have like little devil horns, and you can only see their eyes and their teeth. I think that's actually what kind of creeped me out of the story, their look.
Yeah.
Because also like that, it says it all over the page too. They can only say Momo, so when it says it all over the page too, so you can kind of like realize like in the family, it's getting to their head. So that's what kind of like gave me. It's like, oh well, I mean when they're saying this, it's it's like draining them, and they're like all tackling them, and so yeah, that's what definitely got me, and yeah, yeah, the Moa people and definitely the rat got me out of the story. Mm-hmm. That's why I suggested this book, because it's the creepy part of it. My favorite part of the book is the mythology of the island, of course, of what they're called is the hosts, but they're basically, giant, let's say alien type stones that are alive, and, they set artifacts around, and that they find it, and it's helpful, like what Kayleigh said.
Kit, you're a huge Doug TenNapel fan.
Yeah.
You want to
Kit
jump
and
in?
I've been a fan of Doug TenNapel since I was 8 years old. The first video game that I ever played with my own hands was Earthworm Jim at my great uncle Eddie's funeral with a cousin I didn't know I had. He was the creator and character designer for that.
Didn't that come out when you were like 2?
Well, it was on the Genesis. I'm older than Kayleigh by about 6 years. But yeah, I remember the funeral. Really odd side note: my uncle Eddie drowned off of a rafting accident, and it was the first funeral I ever remembered. And it was a bunch of old people that I'd never met, and I had this cousin that I'd also never met, and was like, hey, do you want to go in the other room with us kids and play video games? And that was when played Earthworm Jim. And it was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen, and I loved it.
It was incredible. It was so much fun.
It was absolutely incredible. And I just had this odd memory of playing this game, and I was raised Southern Baptist. So we had a lot of Christian rock was one of the only things that we listened to when I was growing up. And ska, if you will. Ska music is awesome. So, anyone who disagrees can go fall down a hole with a ghost. Anyway.
Bringing it back.
But, But
Well,
so
nice.
the reason... the reason I get to this is because there was a Christian band, my favorite band still at 29 years old, Five Iron Frenzy. And they're a Christian ska band that, humorously enough, the lead singer's name is Reese, just like the teenage boy in Bad Island. And Doug TenNapel did the covers for their albums for years. And I remember picking up my first Five Iron CD and going, oh my gosh, this is so weird. Like, this art's so weird and cool, and flipping through it. And like, why does this feel so familiar? And I looked it up, and I found out it was the same guy that did Earthworm Jim. And this was when I was a teenager, and I just went, what? Because I couldn't even understand that was a thing. Throughout the years, he's kind of chased me, or I've kind of found him like a comic shop. Somebody throws me a book because I didn't know what I wanted to read, but I wanted something with robots. A little book called Gear. It was written by Doug TenNapel. And I go, this looks familiar. And it was so funny because I'd see his name on all these things and I'd be like, gosh, why is this familiar? And now it's like burned into my head. And he's, I don't know, Doug is something else too. In one of my first conventions in Southern California, I had too many energy drinks and sat down on the floor, all dizzy. And I kind of sit funny with my knees sticking out. And a man came up to me and said, I sit on the floor like that too. Sits down next to me, sitting W. It was Doug TenNapel. And it was just this weird little chasing thing. So I have a ridiculous amount of affection for him as a human being and as an artist. But when I found out we were going to do this book, I did an oh good very loudly in the middle of the reef, I think.
Yep.
So what's funny is that what Levi pointed out about some of these monsters in here is that they're really consistent with a lot of his work, like breaking out the band.
Everybody likes
I don't know
it.
if
wonder
the
if that
listeners
picks
can
up
hear
on
it,
there.
but there's a
like a
marching,
marching
band.
band.
Yeah.
Marching past the studio right now.
It's Arts Walk
This is my
in
jam.
Olympia
Yeah.
today. So all the yuppies are out.
Yeah.
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 Just taking over the city.
Dude, all of them with their khakis and their
Their-
like harnesses they put their kids in.
You know what? That's
Yeah.
actually
Oh my
what I was just
God.
about to say. Like those things that they strap their children to their
Yep.
chest with.
All viewers evacuate the area now. They're coming after us. Run.
So, but
Struggle is real.
like consistencies with Doug TenNapel's style, though, I'm going to just kind of try to power through this marching band. Yeah, that's how I feel in my heart when I think of Doug.
The marching band.
So the little monster guys that say Mo that you pointed out, Levi, he has a bunch of little shadow creatures that he used to do on the album covers of Five Iron Frenzy, and he draws a whole lot of these giant robot type things, like our alien species in the beginning of the book. The cover of, gosh, what is it? Not our newest album ever, but Quantity is Job Number 1. One of their EPs is almost the exact same robot, a robot warrior as these aliens in the beginning. And so every time I pick up one of his books, like I'm always just awash in this wave of affection and nostalgia. So I'm utterly incapable of judging him negatively, which makes me a poor reviewer in many rights.
That's okay. Honestly, maybe I'm just also biased, but I've never found anything negative about his books. They're so charming and just...
I have one tiny problem with this book, and that's just because he tells you a lot of things. Like, he tells you, man, this is really weird. Or, like, he'll directly comment or have a character say, this is one bad island. Or, you know,
Yeah.
like, but, you know, he kind of gets away with it in this book because he makes a lot of really cute jokes. And it kind of has this oddly self-aware thing that makes it okay. Like, he loves throwing in a good joke. And I don't think it hurts the book at all.
It actually makes more humor.
Yeah, you know, gives you a little more fun.
Well, because
Honestly-
people in real life make puns.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
This is unsettling.
Yeah.
My favorite book by him. Okay, so Bad Island is probably my second or third favorite book by him, but my very first is probably, and the very first one is Ghostopolis. Ghostopolis actually got me to read more too, because before I wouldn't read, but ever since, like, I like weird, things, like art. Like, I like weird art, and ever since, that head shake though, yeah, like, just Doug TenNapel, I mean, thank you for coming out with Ghostopolis, because that was actually what got me to read, and yeah.
I have a question for you, Levi.
Yes.
Have you ever read Cardboard by Doug TenNapel?
No, I have not.
You should read that one. We should get that one to you because I think you'd really like it. It's just big cardboard giant robots and things like that. And it's got a lot of his weird creatures and sense of humor. It's a lot of fun.
That's exactly why I like his books. They're humorous. They're weird, funky. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to also compliment one more thing about Ghostopolis. I do really like the characters in Ghostopolis, and definitely the ending. I really do like the ending of it. Wait, was it his grandpa or... No, it was his uncle, I think.
We don't want to spoil
Well, no.
Ghostopolis for anybody.
But I'm just saying,
we'll say
I
that's
like
a
the
good-
ending with his family
Yeah.
member. So, yeah, that's why I like
Yeah, a lot of his books are definitely very family oriented. From what I've read, I haven't read as many
Loving and family.
Doug TenNapel books, but
Well, I pitched one on the show, and we actually did it one week.
You did Creature Tech
Creature
without
Tech.
me, and my heart bled as I listened to it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm glad that you guys got to it. I just whispered yes when I saw you had it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really
Creature
like that
Tech.
book. I do actually have a problem with Doug TenNapel, and I was glad that we picked Bad Island, though, because this book is not guilty of that. He likes inserting his religion into his books, and his supreme faith in God being the correct decision you should make on your life path and whatnot. Creature Tech's guilty of it a little. I
It's pretty
actually
clear on
found Ghostopolis had quite a bit of it, but it was overlookable because of the way that he had wrote the story, because of how cartoony it was. You could get around it easily, but Bad Island, I found, had none of that. Like,
I
mean,
actually
you
was looking for it and didn't find it, you know?
you could, if you made some extreme leaps, you could think of the aliens are a representation of gods for the worlds that they're carrying inside. But no, it was very, very, very tame. And I did like that.
Yeah, I think if you view religion as philosophy, it doesn't feel like that big of a detriment to a story. I think in a lot of cases, it's natural for a lot of people to kind of want to recoil from what they feel is proselytizing. And, that's okay, because we see that all the time. Some of us are, a little tired of being told how to live or things like that. I think of it as a person has operated with a certain audience for so long that he kind of knows who's reading what, or has an expectation of who's reading what. And, like I said, he did covers for this Christian band for years. And so, as a Christian, I don't find it terribly surprising, or him as a Christian, I don't find it terribly surprising that he would talk about his faith. But yeah, it can be hard for some people who don't share that worldview to have to kind of wade through that to enjoy a story too.
In some of his books, it can feel pushy.
Yeah, Creature Tech definitely, I think, gets a little heavy on that. I think it leans a little harder than it needs to toward the end.
Yeah.
Especially because he has some cool ideas in there. He just kind of let him be.
No, and I did love Ghostopolis, but it was
amazing.
something I was noticing as I read
Yeah.
it. And I did love Creature Tech as well, because, I felt like while it was a little heavy, it was part of the story. His father was a preacher, or the father in the book is a preacher,
Yeah.
so it's it's gonna have that stuff.
I feel that way about Golden Compass, actually. It's kind of the same thing where it's you've got a really good story, you've got a really good framework, but you wonder to what point it exists to convey your ethical message to others. And you kind of go, well, would I like this more if you weren't pushing this mindset onto me? Maybe, I think in Doug's case, he's shown that he's capable of telling a good story without it. And I personally prefer when he doesn't include that stuff. But it's more because I think he's a very creative mind, and it's so much fun to see him play around and just be as weird as he wants to be.
Yeah, I mean, he
Yeah.
is very good at reaching into your imagination.
Yeah.
And
I always feel young when I look at his books.
putting what you're thinking onto the page, and I really do appreciate that. And I loved this book. I don't really have any gripes about the book. The only thing I found creepy was the dead snake.
Yeah, that was cute.
I loved it.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Because I actually had snakes growing up. I had 7 of them at one point, including a Burmese python and a family of red-tailed boas.
Were they
Nice.
all alive?
Yes.
Ah, okay. I can see where the
That's
conflict would
trick,
come.
yeah.
Wasn't Kirby talking about taking screenshots of the snake?
Yeah.
Because like every picture of the snake had his like mouth open,
Yeah,
just like a
tongue
derp.
sticking
It was-
out.
And when a
Um,
snake dies, like within hours, it gives off the worst
Yeah.
stench imaginable. And like, you almost feel like
Reptiles
you
smell
have to
really
move
weird.
out of the house because you will smell it for months.
You know,
Yeah.
that's funny actually because I was reading this and I was like, God, that snake couldn't have been dead for very long. Like, they were complaining about the stench. It's probably like a day or 2 old. Like that's a little weird. Like, bodies don't start smelling that bad that quick. You
Dude,
know?
reptile decomp, for some reason, it kicks the funk.
So I'm gonna say this before we move too far away from the religion concept of his books. Actually, I flipped through Dead Island real fast, and I looked at the hosts, and I looked at their armor, and it kind of looks like a mix between Greek and Aztec. If you look closely, because Aztec usually builds their cities on hills, and their backs are kind of like a hill, and their buildings look, very square. And also it seems like they have like certain patterns on their chests and on their arms and all that. So it seems like that's kind of like a Greek, what it looks like.
It could be, yeah,
So-
style choice.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Also, definitely the shoulder pads too. It kind of set off the Greek look because it like adds like the little swirls and like the lines, and of course like also because they're giants too. It probably represents that these are the people's gods, the little alien guys. It's basically their gods or lords.
Yeah,
so
it's
that's kind of
what
what
Cade was.
set it off because. Also, when you look back at Greek mythology, I kind of do a little bit of Greek mythology too in my own time, studying it. But it's kind of like the same concept of Olympus with all their gods and protectors up there. So it's kind of like that. Like the hosts are their gods and protectors. So that's what I found out about the book.
That's
Yeah.
a cool comparison, Actually, I didn't think of it that way. That's really neat, Levi. I feel that.
And the people that want revenge. Those are basically the darkness or the enemies.
Okay.
So-
Yeah.
That's a pretty astute observation.
We got to throw some. I had to throw some art style recommendations. Mostly, I'm going to say it's toward everyone else, but I'm mostly going to be saying them toward Levi, because I love Doug TenNapel.
Same.
The cartoon Cat Scratch. He did the character designs for that. So if you
Did
haven't
he
watched
really?
Cat Scratch, yeah, they're his cats from Gear,
Oh.
which is another comic by him. So
I never read Gear.
Yeah, if you like Doug TenNapel, you should read
It
Cardboard.
was a really early one. I think he
Yeah.
did that in '98.
I'm gonna write these down.
You should do. I'll give you a list too, Levi. You should do Cardboard, Gear, the television show Cat Scratch. If you go on YouTube, you can look at some of the robots inspired by his artwork for the Five Iron Frenzy albums, which are fun. You can see a whole lot of those Earthworm Jim kind of shapes and designs. He's really fond of these rectangle stacking things with these little hot dog mouths that I love. Gosh, I love them so much. Yeah, those are some fun Dougie things. Or the old game. What was that game? Never. God.
Battletoads? Are you
It was
thinking about
Battletoads. Yeah. No, it was it was a Dreamcast game. They were actually going to do a Kickstarter to do a follow-up on this old game that he did that won tons of awards. Let me look it up right now because this is a chance to pimp him making this really wonderful
Neverhood.
game. Neverhood. Thank you. they were going to do a new one to be released on Steam. They reassembled the game company that he was part of. So if you like Doug and you like his work, you should look up that Kickstarter as well, because it'd be wonderful to see more of his fun style.
Now,
in
one
games.
thing I just have to say, for those of you who don't know who Earthworm Jim is, one of the greatest things that boggled my mind when I was a kid is this is an action hero who is a worm and uses his own head as a grappling hook.
Yes. And a lasso.
How amazing is that?
Yeah. It's a very creative game. You know, it's we're talking about, that's a good point, Cade, talking about Earthworm Jim like everybody in the world knows Earthworm Jim. But seriously, when that game came out, people were like, this is so
22
creative.
years ago.
Yeah, and it launched a stupid amount of really goofy, really grossish, really creative, fun kind of games. And it was very unique in a time when there was mostly just like platform characters doing everything. It was kind of a dark horse to come up in gaming. So I don't know. I will be quiet because I'm going to cry and talk about Doug TenNapel for the next 6 hours. I'm going to sip my coffee. Someone else talk.
All right. So we're getting close to wrapping up here, but I do want to talk a little bit about the idea of young adult spooky comics, because I feel like this genre in particular is huge, and we see it even in just young adult like prose. Like you have Goosebumps, you have of course I'm blanking on everything, but you know, you have a plethora of like vampire comics. Vampire comics, zombie comics, and books, and you know, just this is a huge genre, and I have a couple of theories as to why that would be the case. Most of them kind of stem from me growing up as, you know, itty bitty goth child, Dark Princess of the Black Knight, as my family affectionately called me. But I think one of the things is like having this genre allows children and young adults a chance to look at somebody who would otherwise be perceived as an outsider and see kind of how they can be unique but also fit in or be kind, or just have like these sort of societal relationships, and they're usually started from a position of a very basic level. Like, oh, well, we don't talk to that family because they dress in all black and they're creepy and they're spooky, and then the family's actually really nice and
They're altogether kooky.
Yeah, altogether kooky. So you have, you know, like this kind of beginning relationship, and you get to have that as a starting point. And I think for a lot of younger people, learning that level of interaction, that level of, I guess, societal expectation is really useful. And so I think that this is a good genre to sort of explore that concept of, you know, how do we interact with people? How do we maintain uniqueness? How do we assimilate when we need to? That sort of a thing. And is assimilating ever a good thing, or can it be sometimes? And so I just kind of wanted to get some of your guys' ideas on why this genre is as big as it is.
I think. Oh,
No, go ahead, Kirby.
oh, just one thing that I noticed about all the books that we read for this week is that a lot of them seem to be about like young adults kind of growing into themselves and learning things about themselves a lot, and like having relationships with their parents and their friends and kind of growing up a little bit. And I'm not sure if that necessarily has to do specifically with like spooky stuff, but it's appealing to people, I think, sometimes just because it's like, oh, you're into that? And you're like, yeah, forget the police. Like, I do what I want. I like this spooky stuff. And you can kind of learn something from it because of these experiences where they have something that's kind of unworldly that they have to deal with. And then they realize that, hey, you know what? I was like with Anya's ghost, like she was kind of a brat. And then she kind of like had this experience with this ghost that was a real brat. And she was like kind of better afterwards.
Yeah.
You know?
They all hinge on
Agreed.
uncertainty, don't they?
Yeah.
All the situations hinge on uncertainty over what they're going to have, what they're going to get, and what they want, right?
Well,
Yeah.
I actually forgot to say something about Anya's ghost. I actually did like how the friendship started. About I mean, she's scared to death because she kind of fell down a well. Wait, is it a hole or a well?
Oh well.
A well. Oh, she fell down a well with a ghost and a dead body. So I kind of liked how the friendship kind of started. She's like, "Oh God, stay away from me." But then later on, when she found out that the ghost is actually helpful and could be a really good friend, I like how it just started warming up the story. That's what I liked about it.
I know another story about a girl falling down a well, and there's like bones down there, and it turns out it's for Mistress Centipede, and then she has to go back in time and feel Japan, and that's a pretty good one too.
Yeah.
Wait, which one is that? Which one's that?
Inuyasha.
I remember Kayleigh, you used to always watch that show.
Still do.
I
Still
don't
do?
know when you stop watching that
Yeah,
show, really.
it's on Netflix right now. It's my life.
All right, new episode. We're going on to anime. I'm kidding.
All right.
Anyone seen that episode, Sword Art Online? That was a good show.
Yeah.
All right, let's not talk about anime now. Okay.
But yeah, I just there's so many comics in this genre. A couple that didn't make this show either because there just wasn't room or because we had already talked about it on the main show. There's
Now, when you say genre, do you mean horror comics in general or just horror comics for young adults?
the young adult,
Okay.
like spooky, creepy. I don't really want to call them horror because they're not all horror, so I keep changing the name of the genre. I'm like most modern punk bands now. Just, what's your genre? Oh, well, gosh, gypsy, punk, folk, metal,
Yeah.
grindcore.
Electric.
Piano metal.
Yeah.
That's actually a thing. I like it.
But yeah, so there's Courtney Crumrin, which we talked about on the main show, which is a perfect example of this type of genre where it focuses on something that would otherwise be kind of creepy or spooky, but it has like this young adult twist to it, I guess. And there tends to be the sense of a moral in all of these stories. And I don't know if I'm just particularly in tune with that because I'm reading it from the perspective of, why are these books being written right now? Or if that's just something that tends to happen in YA fiction. But all of these books have some sort of overarching lesson of family is a good thing. You don't always have to be who you think you have to be. Maybe sometimes the way that you live your life isn't as bad as you think it is. Like that sort of a thing. And I don't know, I think that this is a good genre to sort of explore that type of lesson and that sense of morality.
And imagination is never a bad thing. And it's a sad day when you lose it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So,
Yeah.
do you have any other final thoughts? Because I swear to God, I'm going to get punk rock and pee my pants.
Okay.
I'm going to have to get frank about this.
Are you going to be like a gypsy punk
Absolutely.
folk metal pee
By
your
the
pants?
time you
or-
finish that sentence,
Okay.
I will already pee my pants.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, for the sake of Kit's bladder,
Please.
I think we're done.
Yeah, I think we should wrap this up now.
All right. So,
Hi,
good
Mom.
night. Good night, everybody.
Happy spooks.
Yeah. Happy second
Spooky,
week
scary
of spooky
skeletons.
comics. All
Spookoween.
right. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening to our show, everybody. Special thanks to theouthousers.com for posting our episodes. You can always keep up to date with everything we're doing by checking out our website at viewfromthegutters.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel as we post new videos every week. You can like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at ViewFRTHGutters. And please be sure to leave us an iTunes review, as it really does help new listeners find the show. And thanks again for listening. And as always, keep reading.